Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven. Verse 8. A time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. Shalom. All praises, glories, and honors to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahushai, Bahashim, Waka, Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who have taught me this truth, as well as men of like mind. Shalom wa kasad to the elect of the nation of Israel, whom are you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native American Indians, and Israelite foreigners, whom are scattered here in America, which is Babylon the Great, and abroad. To you I say Shalom, and Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai Ratazah. This lesson is edifying. Now, in today's lesson, we will expound upon this article published by the New York Times.com entitled Live Updates. Iran vows forceful revenge against U.S. kills general. After U.S. kills general. Iran vows forceful revenge after U.S. kills general. Now, over the past 24 hours, as you brothers who out there have been tuning in and keeping update with the news, have seen that tensions between the U.S., which is America, which is Babylon the Great, and Iran, the Persians, have heightened after the U.S. had bombed Iran's most powerful general, or second most powerful general, Qasem Soleimani, in Baghdad, in Iraq. All right. Now it says Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, promised retaliation against those who killed Major General Qasem Soleimani in Baghdad. The U.S. moved to send more troops to the Middle East. And this is all prophecy playing out before our eyes. Because we understand, according to the Holy Scriptures, nations will arise against nations and kingdoms against kingdoms in these latter days. And that nations such as the United States, Russia, China, and Iran are going to all go to war against each other. That is, Iran and his guard, Russia, and China against the state of Israel and the United States, America, Babylon the Great, in the valley of Yehoshaphat. That is, in the valley of the Heavenly Father, Yahweh's decision in the Middle East. Okay? Because right now we are in the season of war. We are not in the time of love. We are in the time of hate. We are not in the time of peace. Rather, we are in the time of war. And what the U.S. has done is an act of war against the modern day Persians. which today they are known as the Iranians. Okay? And clearly everything was done in such a strategic manner as to justify the US's cause of going into Iraq and killing General Qasem Soleimani. Everything was all a false flag, as the pre-shaman had done a lesson earlier entitled The Assassination of Qasem Soleimani, and he breaks down the fact that what took place over the past 24 hours was all a psyop. It was all a false flag to justify the US's endeavor to go into Iraq to kill the Iranian general, because they had wanted to kill this guy for a very, very long time now, man. You know, and even I had said that too earlier throughout the day. You know, they killed this guy. They used the protest that they had as a means of justifying their reasoning to go into Iraq and bombing and killing this general. Here's a short clip.
سيارتي مخرجات هواقع عليها والله ما يمكن يا ربي.
Soleimani was plotting imminent and sinister attacks on American diplomats and military personnel, but we caught him in the act. We took action last night to stop a war. We did not take action to start a war.
هذا الفيديو خاص بمحور المقاومة، جريمة الشنعاء التي قام بها الاحتلال الأمريكي.
And as a pre-shaman had said in his lesson, this is the propaganda that, or the narrative that the U.S. media is going to push, as if truly the people are rejoicing over the death of this Major General Qasem Soleimani. But in all reality, they're actually burning U.S. flags and shouting death to Babylon, death to America. Okay? And these people are enraged. Okay?
این جنایت بزرگ آبروریزی بیشتری برای آقای ترامپ به بار خواهد آورد و ملت بزرگ ایران انتقام سختی از دولت آمریکا خواهد گرفت.
And there you go. The people are actually protesting and showing how much they hate and they desire to see the destruction of America, Babylon the Great, which according to Bible prophecy will be destroyed by 200 million ICBM nuclear missile warheads. For these are the weapons of the Lord's indignation, according to the book of Jeremiah, chapter 50, verse 25. Now, I'm not going to read this portion, as the video had already stated that Trump claimed that the attack was done in order to so-called prevent a war and not to start one. But we understand that the king's heart is in the hands of the Heavenly Father Yahweh through His Son Yahweh Shai. And the Heavenly Father is the one that actually orchestrated the event to begin the process of the prophecy concerning the third world's woe, which it was already in the process, but now the Lord is going to heighten things up even more, for this is a year of prophecy. Okay, now I'll read certain parts of it and go to the scriptures. The airstrike directed by Mr. Trump dramatically ratcheted up tensions between Washington and Tehran, and Iran's leaders quickly promised retaliation for the general's killing. Around the time of the overnight strike, a special operations unit based in the United States boarded transport aircraft bound for the Middle East, one Defense Department official said. So they're sending more troops over there into the Middle East. The deployment of the elite Army Rangers was the latest to the region. This week, the Pentagon readied 4,000 troops based at Fort Bragg, NC, for a similar security mission to Kuwait. They are to depart in the coming days, joining 750 troops already deployed, officials said. The brigade will deploy in Kuwait as an appropriate and precautionary action in response to increased threat levels against U.S. personnel and facilities, a Department of Defense spokesman said. And let's not fail to mention that, according to biblical prophecy, the least of the flock, the state of Israel, it is what will draw the United States into attacking Iran, beginning the third world's woe. And when that happens, Russia, Gog and Magog, will become a guard unto Iran, pursuant to the book of Ezekiel, the 30th chapter. Okay? It says, the brigade will deploy to Kuwait as an appropriate and precautionary action in response to increased threat levels against U.S. personnel and facilities, the Department of Defense spokesman said. General Soleimani, a powerful strategist who represented Iran's influence across the region, was killed by an American drone at Baghdad's airport in an attack that had been authorized by President Trump. Iraq's parliament planned to hold an emergency session over the weekend to address the airstrike, which Prime Minister Adel Abdul Mahdi called a brazen violation of Iraq's sovereignty and a blatant attack on the nation's dignity. A powerful Iraq militia leader was also killed. The strike, regarded by an analyst, as perhaps the riskiest American move in the Middle East since the invasion of Iraq in 2003, threatened to inflame hostiles across the region. And what America's plan is, according to Project for a New American Century, PNAC, was to basically have a regime change in Iran. That's their goal. They want a regime change in Iran so bad that they're willing to go to war with Iran. Okay? They're willing to do things that are detrimental to even their allies, such as Turkey and even Saudi Arabia. To go against Iran in order to have a regime change, because ultimately it's all for the state of Israel, because America is just simply a proxy for the state of Israel. Really, the state of Israel is the one that's calling all the shots behind the scenes, and Israel wants complete dominance of the Middle East. That's what they want, man. So they're willing to do anything in order to achieved just that. Now it says, since the invasion of Iraq in 2003 threatened to inflame hostilities across the region, Iran promises forceful revenge for generals' killing. Iranian leaders issued strident calls on Friday for revenge against the United States after the killing of Major General Qasem Soleimani in an overnight strike at the Baghdad airport. His death is a considerable blow to Tehran and Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, called for retribution and for 3 days of national mourning. His departure to God does not end his path or his mission, but a forceful revenge awaits the criminal who have his blood and the blood of the other martyrs last night on their hands, the supreme leader said in a statement. Iran's security body also pledged to avenge General Soleimani's killing in the right place and time, saying it had reached a decision on how to do so. And by the way, Iran, if they decide to close the Strait of Hormuz, oil prices are going to spike up to $130 a barrel. And then once that happens, or if that happens, which I believe through the spirit it will very soon, when that happens and your oil prices begin to start skyrocketing, it will then affect your truckers. And then we all know what's going to happen after that, because I did a video on the effects or the chain reactions that the lack of truckers can cause. And it doesn't take long for a famine to hit, man. It only takes about a week or two. So the Lord is going to do a lot of big things this year, man. The year of prophecy, going by Allah Paz Dahar through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahushai. The American strike spurred mass displays of public mourning by Iran and its network of allies across the Middle East. Iranian officials said the general's body would be taken on a funeral procession around Baghdad, and that the funeral would be held for him in Tehran on Sunday. And it's a pretty lengthy article, so I will conclude the reading there, and I will leave the article in the description box. And let's now get into the scriptures. Okay. But before I do, I will read this. The strike was carried out by an MQ-9 Reaper drone that fired missiles on a convoy of vehicles leaving the airport. Several other officials from Iraqi militias backed by Tehran were also killed. This strike was aimed at deterring future Iranian attack plans, and so they also killed Iraq militias, high-ranking officials of Iraq as well. The Pentagon said in a statement, the United States has long been at odds with Iran over its nuclear program, and they're going to use any excuse or any means necessary to justify the things that they do against Iran and in the Middle East for the state of Israel, just so they can have a regime change in Iran. In Iraq and other countries in the region, those tensions have surged under the Trump administration. The strike on Friday was the latest escalation between the two nations after a rocket attack on Iraqi military base believed to have been carried out by an Iran-backed militia, killed an American contractor in December. The United States hit back with airstrike on an Iranian-backed militia that killed 24 and prompted outrage among some who saw that attack as a violation of Iraqi sovereignty. Pro-Iranian demonstrators broke into the United States Embassy compound on Tuesday. The breach prompted Mr. Trump to order roughly 750 additional American troops to be deployed to the region. And I will conclude the reading of this article there, and we will now get into the scriptures. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven. So to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. Verse 8, a time to war, a time to love, So you're going to have a time to love and a time to hate. You will have a time to hate. A time of war, which we are in a time of war, and a time of peace. And right now we are not in the time of peace. Right now we are in a time of war. That's why we see all these different nations preparing for war. And how are they doing so? They are doing so by beating their plowshares into swords and their pruning hooks into spears, which is a metaphor for their economic wealth. Joel chapter 3, verse 10, beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. And that is what these different nations, such as Iran, such as North Korea, India, Pakistan, are doing. They are beating their plowshares into swords and their pruning hooks into spears, which is a metaphor for their economic wealth, because plowshares and pruning hooks are instruments of agriculture that was used in antiquity and even now to cultivate, to reap a farmer's land. But now they're using their economic wealth to further develop weapons of mass destruction such as ICBM nuclear missiles, and missile defense systems. Let the weak say, I am strong. That's what these different nations are doing. They are saying, I am strong. I am no longer weak. I will no longer be vulnerable or subject to the U.S. and their influence. That's what these nations are doing, because they are preparing for what? For war, because we are in a season of war. And what war are we in the season of? Revelation chapter 11, verse 14. The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. So World War I and World War II have both passed, and the third woe cometh quickly. And that is the war that we are in the season of. The season of the third woe's woe, which will be fought with what? Isaiah chapter 9, verse 5. For every battle of the warrior is a confused noise, and garments rolled in blood, but this shall be with burning and fuel of fire. So the third woe's woe will be fought with burning and fuel of fire. Because usually in antiquity, every battle of the warrior would be with confused noise. Men would go to war against each other. They would be screaming. And they would use swords, spears, lances, arrows, and bows, swords in their hands. And they would go to war. And they would stab each other up, cut each other's hands off, trust each other true with the sword or with the spear or with the lance, and, gushing each other's guts out. That's how ancient wars used to be fought, and the blood was sprinkled up on each other's garment. But this war, the third world's war, shall be fought with burning and fuel of fire. Why? Malachi chapter 4, verse 1. For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and all the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble. And the day that cometh shall burn them up, save the Lord Yahweh of hosts, that I shall leave them neither root nor branch. So the third world's woe will be a day that will burn as an oven. All right? And all the proud, and who is the proud? The proud is Esau, Edom, as well as the other heathen nations, as well as 2/3 of the nation of Israel. And all that do wickedly, and who does wickedly? Esau, Edom, as well as 2/3 of the nation of Israel, as well as the other heathen nations. And they shall be stubble. And the day that cometh shall burn them up, save the Lord Yahweh of hosts, that it shall leave neither root nor branch, because America will be utterly burnt with fire, leaving nothing. Psalms chapter 21, verse 9. Thou shalt make them as a fiery oven in the time of thine anger. The Lord Yahweh shall swallow them up in his wrath, and the fire shall devour them. And that's what's going to happen. The land of America, the land of Israel, will be eviscerated with fire. And other various parts of the world, but mainly over here in America, Babylon the Great, and also the land of Israel. Because the war is going to be fought over there in the Middle East. As we had read earlier in the book of Joel, the 3rd chapter, these nations are going to assemble themselves in the Middle East, which is in the valley of Yahweh Shaphat, Yahweh's judgment. Joel chapter 3, verse 2, I will also gather all nations and will bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat, which in the Hebrew is Yahweh Shaphat, Yahweh's judgment, which is over there in the Arabian Peninsula, in the Middle East, and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations, and part of my land, because all these different nations had a part in our captivity. Okay, I'll jump straight down to verse 11. Assemble yourselves, and come all ye heathens, and gather yourselves together round about, to the cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Yahweh. And the mighty ones are the angels, and that is where our Lord Yahweh Shai, who will come from the east, will appear to judge all the heathen nations round about in the valley of decision, pursuant to the book of 2nd Ezra, the 13th chapter. And they're all going to be eviscerated, man. All right. Isaiah chapter 34, verse 2, for the indignation of the Lord Yahweh is upon all nations, and his fury upon all their armies. It utterly destroyed them, and had delivered them to the slaughter. Their slain also shall be cast out, and their stink shall come up out of their carcasses, and the mountains shall be melted with their blood, and the hosts of heaven shall be dissolved. All these different armies of these different nations, they're all going to be dissolved by way of the ICBM nuclear missiles. And the heavens shall be rolled together as a scroll. What will cause the heaven to roll together as a scroll? The ICBM nuclear missiles. And they will cause the heaven to roll together as a scroll through a phenomenon called the Rayleigh-Taylor instability, which is the instability of an interface between two fluids of different densities. When you have the lighter interface, or the lighter fluid pushing against the heavier fluid, like oil and water. When you put oil into water, it creates like a little curve around the edges, and that's what happens once a nuclear bomb explodes. It creates a mushroom cloud that rolls its outer edge, or the cone of it, to like a curl, like a scroll, in the outer edge. And all the hosts shall fall down as the leaf falleth off from the vine, and as a fallen fig from the fig tree. My sword shall be bathed in heaven, which is the ICBM nuclear missiles. Behold, it shall come down upon Idumea, which represents Esau, Edom, and upon the people of my curse, to judgment. This is the book of Revelation, last verse, chapter 6, verse 14. And the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain, every government and island were moved out of their places. That's what's going to happen, man. So, with that, I pray this lesson was edifying to the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai Bashim Akakudash. Until the next I say, Shalom.